The February 8th India Planning Commission meeting is now called to order. Ms. Manman, can we get roll call, please?
Commissioner Isiano,
Here.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Present.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Here. And Commissioner Isiano, can you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we move on to our agenda, if you are here and are interested in giving public comment for items that are not on the agenda or items that are on the agenda, if you could please fill out a form and hand it over to Ms. Belmont so that we can make sure to call on you for your public comment. Okay, let's go over comments not on the agenda.
There are none.
All right, thank you. Moving on to study session item 5.1, project consultation.
Excuse me, Chair, I think we skipped an item.
Did we?
And number 4.
Minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Continue.
Okay. I was like, oh no, I'm looking at a different thing. Okay. Can we move on to our study session item 5.1?
Good evening, Commissioners. Kendra Ave, Principal Planner. I am going to be discussing the Fine Food Bank Warehouse project. This is a project consultation. Fine Food Bank is proposing to construct an approximately 50,000 square foot new warehouse building adjacent to the existing Fine Food Bank warehouse on Citrus Avenue. Find has received a state grant to help with the building's construction costs and has also begun a capital fundraising program. For context, this is where the proposed construction of the new building will take place. Find would like to occupy the new building by summer of 2024. This new building will also assist Find in enhancing its ability to serve as the Coachella Valley's regional food assistance hub. The proposed project is consistent with the City of Indio General Plan Update and with the City of Indio Unified Development Code. The project is required to obtain design review approval from the Planning Commission. That is final unless appealed to the City Council. The applicant is also here if you have any questions for them.
Great. Are there any questions for staff? No? Okay. Then we do open up for public hearing. Are there any? Gotcha. Sorry. Still learning. So we'll open up the public hearing and hear from the client.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairperson and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here this late in the evening at 6 o'clock. I know you guys work very hard after long days, so I'm here to be able to answer any questions that you have. I also have another presentation that is prepared to give you a little bit more of the schematics of the building, as well as the case statements and the background for this very, very important project to ensure food security for all of the southeastern desert region of the state of California. With a regional food bank expanding and being domiciled here in Indio, California. So if you wouldn't mind me the pleasure to be able to share that with you, I think that because we are a community that works together, it would be great for the Planning Commission to be able to see that too as well, so you have background. Thank you so much, Kendra, for introducing us. I don't even really know what else to say. You've captured it so well, but we'll keep going through this.
If you wouldn't mind, excuse me.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind, would you please state your name for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Debbie Espinosa, and I am the President and CEO of Find Food Bank. So as you can see here, our main goal is to ensure that we end hunger, not just for today, but for tomorrow and also for a lifetime. And our new building that we are planning to construct with the approval of the city is to ensure that we are stably here for many, many years to come for those that may be suffering from food insecurity, but to also make sure that people know that there is somebody in an organization that is here to help them in times of need. The other reason why we're looking at constructing the new building is because there was lots of learning lessons through the pandemic. Many of the people in the city, as well as the rest of this community, saw the sheer amount of work and the sheer amount of food that was coming down through our food bank facility in order to make sure that when we increased by over 110% beyond what we were normally serving, there was enough space in our location to be able to serve the need. Fine Food Bank started in 1983, and over the last 39 years, we've had magnanimous growth. You can see our service area of what Fine Food Bank serves isn't just here in Indio, but it actually spans well beyond the Coachella Valley Desert region. We actually charged with serving the high desert all the way up to Anza and all the way down to the Salton Sea. And as we turn 40 this year, we continue to grow. You can see here food and people by the numbers in 08-09 when our current facility that you see on the picture was built and constructed after our 10,000 square foot facility in Cathedral City had burned down. Fine Food Bank and the Houston Family Foundation chose the city of Indio for our new home to be built because of the epicenter and location right off of Gulf Center Parkway and the 10 for easy access in and out to serve that area. In 08-09, it was 6.2 million pounds with 12 staff members. By the time fiscal year 18-19 happened, we were at 13.9 million pounds that we were distributing. Our food bank was built to be about 10 million pounds, so we were over by 30% capacity by then. And then everybody remembers what happened in 2020. The pandemic hits, now we're breaching into 30 million pounds of food in order to serve about 190,000 people at its peak. Because at this point in time now, we have the largest USDA contract for emergency food distribution, which means that all of the TFAP and USDA foods that are going to support disaster and pandemic-struck areas are filtering through our warehouse out into all of the community-based organizations and through our mobile markets. You can see that we have an average of 472 tractor-trailer loads that are moved each week, about 8.2 truckloads per week. And again, our emergency response hit over 190,000 people in that bounded area. On top of that, just the food, we also do all of these things. So our program expansion has continued to grow. Back in 08-09, we had the programs that were listed in black where we're distributing fresh produce. We have 6 pantries. We're doing outreach services. But as time has increased and over the last 5 years, everything that you see in orange and red is what we have added since then in order to make sure that we can continue to expand services. Again, not just food distribution throughout our warehouse, but looking at ending hunger for a lifetime through other things like workforce development programs, ensuring fresh produce is going out to people that are food insecure, as well as starting very large senior hunger programs that can serve our entire community. The areas that are highlighted in red are the ones that we're struggling with right now because we are just running out of space. And we were very lucky because at the end of 2020, some of our donors knew that we were running out of space, and the land next to us was then given to us in order for us to be able to expand out into that space because they knew we were over capacity. And we're seeing what we were going through during the pandemic. From the last 5 years, Fine Food Bank has grown and expanded to be the largest hunger relief organization in the southeastern desert region of California. We're also the largest food rescue organization in the southeastern region of California. Many of you have heard of SB 1383, which is the recycling program. We're very much bound and work with many of the cities, including the city of Indio, to be able to partner and support SB 1383 on the food rescue aspect. We're also 2 of the largest federal hunger relief programs contractors, TFAP and CSFP, as well as the named disaster response food bank for this region for Eastern Riverside County by both federal, state, and by county. So we fast forward into 2023, 40 years and beyond. We turn 40 years old this year. And because of the work that we have been doing, and as the Feeding America food bank that serves this part of the United States, we've been doing so well with regards to the services that they actually expanded our territory. We now go all the way down to the California-Mexico border, to the California-Arizona border. We partner with the Imperial Valley Food Bank down there to serve it, as well as partnering or have a branch up in the high desert too as well, up in the Morongo Basin District. But our main facilities and headquarters still stay here, domiciled in Indio. So our vision, and this is the exciting part, is a Find Food Bank food security campus. And today, what it looks like, if the project is successful, which we know it will be, is 2 buildings totaling over 80,000 square feet to be able to serve as the main and primary warehouse and client services center to ensure that we have much room to grow into and to be able to serve, especially during times of disaster, when we know that we have the ability to triple the amount of food being distributed based on the federal resources that are being driven down into our area to serve this community. If you take a look at the buildings, I'm not sure exactly all the pictures that you received, but these are some of our most recent ones that have come through. You can see it's very thoughtfully designed in order to look like it is a sister to the building that we're currently in. It's designed to be a very well-designed Class B building, so it's not overstated, but it's not understated, and it's something that our community can be proud of and that clients can be proud of. You can see here the front of the building is to allow for lots of bright light to come in as our clients are coming in and receiving services, as well as our staff being able to distribute to over 150 distribution sites throughout the community. And so what I'd like for you to do is actually take one more little walk with me at our new Find Food Bank Food Security Campus. And if you could launch the video right now, that would be great. So you can see here on the left is our current building. On the right is the new proposed building. You can see the semi-tractor trailers going in and out towards the back. You can see the pavers that are there. If you can imagine with me, people being able to buy a brick to be able to help support the construction of the building. So many of the community members' names are going to be right there, located in the front of our building, for us saying thank you for their support. Thank you. If we can go back to my presentation, that'd be great. The traffic pattern estimates, as you can see, in FY23, we expect to do 18.5 million pounds, which is 8.5 truckloads per semi-tractor trailers per week. That's what we're currently doing now. FY30, we're estimating at 11.5 tractor trailer loads per week. FY40, 16. The interesting thing about this facility, and it's one of the things that we thought about with regards to the design, is that if you can see on the left side where our current building is, it's the one that's sitting at the top, there's an inlet that comes in and then it goes into the cul-de-sac. And with the trucks that we have coming in and out, it's fine, but we knew with the expanded capacity, it could bottleneck right there. The way in which our architects have designed it is, as you can see on the bottom building, the trucks are coming in and you see that circular pattern at the back. We actually have our own cul-de-sac per se, where all semi-tractor trailers will be self-contained in that area to do a full 360-degree turn, so it doesn't have to do it out on the street affecting our neighbors. For us, we want to be good neighbors with everybody around us because we know that our neighbors have the ability to help support our work too as well. What this new building actually does is it opens up the traffic flow for people to be able to come in and out for the other areas that are being developed. I think the other thing is the way that we designed that, it's actually designed after both Target and Walmart distribution centers that have that same capacity to do the full 360-degree turn on their semi-tractor trailers. So we're taking very well-designed buildings and incorporating it into our space too as well for maximum efficiency. Our building timeline, August 22 to May 23 is our design and permitting phase construction between June of 23 and 24 with a grand opening in September of 2024 for Hunger Action Month, to be able to celebrate with our communities and especially the city for being able to have the largest regional food bank in the southeastern region, to make sure that we together allow people to know that they don't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from. So I appreciate your time, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Our architect and my capital projects manager is here too as well to answer any more detailed questions that I'm not able to.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I think I just have one. First of all, I think it's going to be a great addition. I noticed solar panels.
Yes.
On the one roof.
Yes.
Are you going to be able to be almost 100% solar? Is that the goal?
Yes, the goal is, so currently, and what's not showing on our current building, is that we are actually almost 100% solar. We just actually installed close to $750,000 worth of solar panels on our current facility in this past year. Because of that, we've been able to do amazing energy studies to see what kind of energy it's producing and how much it allows us to be able to use against what it is that we are required to have to support our freezers and cooling systems. What's interesting about this building is that our major power draw is actually in our current facility, where we have the sub-zero freezers and the commercial size coolers. That's where all of that is running. And I want to say the last electricity bill that I just saw is about 25 to 50% less than the power draw that we had last year. And we actually increased the amount of energy usage because we had to install a sub-zero freezer that can hold up to 4 truckloads. But we're actually using less power than what we did before when we didn't have it. This new building is designed to be the same way, and we actually have a grant from the state of California and USDA to be able to do the solar at 100% capacity on the rooftop, to be able to do the same thing with this facility. So we are trying to be as close to net negative, if you can say, with regard, or net zero with regards to energy usage. We won't get there at 100%, but we'll be way less than what we would be if we didn't have the solar.
That's wonderful. I really appreciated seeing that on there. But that was my only question. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just have a question just regarding funding, and I know you're going to hear some comments and maybe some suggestions, so I want to understand where you are in your funding structure for this type of building.
Yes, absolutely. So it looks like we're going to need to raise somewhere between $9 to $10 million in order to be able to do the construction of the project. We were very lucky. We got a $3.8 million capacity building grant from the state of California in order to ensure that our disaster resiliency is strong. We received another $1.7 million grant from the USDA in order to be able to do the fixtures, meaning the solar panels, the racking, and everything on the inside, as well as the cooler and the freezers. And then we are looking at another $1 million grant right now that is in process, that we're about 95% secured with that. I don't want to release the funding source from that until it's absolutely secure, but we're there. When we hit about 60 to 70%, we'll launch with our public phase of fundraising. But I know that this is an open public meeting, so I guess maybe we're mini launching it right now. If anybody wants to buy a brick, they're more than welcome to. So hopefully that answers your questions, but we don't see any problems being able to raise the amount of money because we have such a strong start, and the board is very, very committed with regards to even some reserves that Fine Food Bank has in order to be able to make sure that it's there.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
No, there
Okay.
are none.
All right, are there any other questions from the commissioners before we close the public hearing?
Well, it's a study session,
Oh,
right?
do we do
So,
that?
yeah.
There we go.
But I think the biggest thing to say is, I know you come here to get a feel for how we feel about this as part of our community, more than anything else. And we really appreciate you coming before us and sharing this with us at this point. Honestly, after the whole COVID thing, I heard from so many people how much Fine Food Bank made everything better when it was such a hard time. So I think this is a great plan. I think that the fact that you're planning for the growth that we all see continuing to happen here in the desert, I think that's phenomenal. So I think it's a great use of space, and I love the fact that you're looking at it being green, or as green as we can make these buildings. And I really don't see any reason this would not be a good part of our community. You know, this is a study session, of course. When you come back with all the specifics, we'll review it then for anything. But I think overall it is much needed in our community, and honestly, I'm glad it's in Indio.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. Like I said, this is the Deserts Regional Food Bank, and there's only 200 Feeding America regional food banks in the United States. Indio was specifically selected because of the access and the epicenter it is to the, you know, broad community and scope that we have, because Golf Center and 10 is perfect location. So, you know, for us to have an 80,000 plus square foot facility ensuring that people don't go hungry, and it's domiciled here in the city of Indio, this partnership will be amazing, not just to Indio, but to all of the people in the desert region. So it's something to be proud of for our city. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
Nothing else? Okay, let's move on to item 5.2, project consultation from Continental Development.
Alex Ramirez on behalf of Continental East Development. Thank you, Commissioners. First, before I start, I just want to say I think this is a beautiful opportunity that you provide to any applicant that's looking to come to the city and develop with you, the opportunity to meet you firsthand and kind
I
of.
think we had a question there.
We're gonna,
this
we're
side.
gonna do staff presentation
Sure.
first and then turn it over
Sorry.
to you.
Yeah.
So can we get a staff report?
The applicant is proposing to develop a self-termed wellness community on 16.6 acres located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Avenue 40 and Jefferson Street. As conceived, the project would be comprised of 163 duplex/triplex cottages that are approximately 1,500 to 1,600 square feet. There would be a community recreation center, resort-style amenities, personalized concierge service, private care and universal design features. Parking would consist of 163 attached garage spaces and 164 guest/uncovered parking spaces. The subject property currently has a general plan 2040 land use designation of workplace employment district and a zoning designation pursuant to the City of Indio Unified Development Code of Light Industrial. Based on these designations, the project's proposed residential land uses would not be allowed. The applicant's project information and plans indicate that the project previously received entitlements from the city in 2013, which is correct. However, these entitlements, the entitlement approval has expired and therefore are not applicable. In order for the proposed project to be able to be developed, the interested party would need to obtain a general plan and zoning plan amendment recommended by the Planning Commission and approved by the City Council. A substantive environmental assessment will need to be conducted for compliance to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. The proposed project as presented would have a density of approximately 10 dwelling units per acre, and as such would need to obtain higher density general plan land use and zoning designations such as Connected Neighborhood 14. In addition, the project would also need to obtain planning review approval from the Planning Commission and would be reviewed under the land use and design standards of applicable sections of the adopted Unified Development Code. The information from the applicant shows a conceptual timeline for the proposed project. This project does not substantively take into the account the timelines for the processing of the required general plan and zoning amendments. It also fails to take into account timeframes for the processing of required building and engineering approvals. As a result, this presented timeline may not reflect the actual timeline for this project. As noted in other recent discussions pertaining to proposed conversations of properties designated for light industrial uses to residential uses, this conversion would result in the permanent loss of industrial land inventory in the city. The city has a limited industrial land use inventory, 519 acres, of which approximately 60% has been developed. Therefore, the potential loss of 16 acres from the city's industrial lands inventory would be significant and could impact the city's ability to attract employment-generating businesses. That is the goal of the Workplace Employment Land Use designation of the adopted General Plan 2040. As a reminder, approximately 74% of the current workforce in the city of Indio travels outside the community for employment. That reduces the city's ability to benefit from increased property tax and/or sales tax from industrial-oriented land uses and also from employee-generating taxable activities such as shopping, eating, and obtaining fuel within the city limits. I'm available for any questions if you have any, and the applicant is here as well for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission for staff? Nothing yet? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide any comments? Oh, I'm sorry, the applicant, if you could please make your presentation. I am sorry, I didn't have enough caffeine today.
I'm right there with you. I could use a little bit more myself. No, but just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. We understand the current zoning and the current situation that's designated for the property, but we believe that we have taken into consideration all the factors that usually come into the consideration for approving a project, and we'd like to present that. And to do so, we have our CEO and President of Continental East Development, Mr. Al Rattan, who will actually take over with the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Al Rattan, and I want to thank you for allowing us to speak today. I've been at this about 40 years, and I have to say this is the first time I've been in front of a pre-planning commission. I think it's a great idea. I think it would help a lot to have open dialogue. So what I'd like to talk to you about is a concept that really I wish I could take credit for, but it's my wife who runs our senior operations. It's her idea. So if I can understand how to work this thing, there we go. Continental East Development is a regional developer. We're based in Murrieta. We have an extensive background in assisted memory care. We developed Rancho Belago in Moreno Valley and operated it. We currently also own and operate Renaissance Village Murrieta, which is right across from the colony, very similar to Shadow Hills. And we also do multifamily, but a variety of things. As staff discussed with you, we originally entitled this project back in 2013, so probably the first question of the day is, where you been? What happened? And I think I've got a nice little thing, kind of up there in the left slide, you'll see some blue lines running across. That just happened to be a flood control channel. And we have a nice slide here that we've been working with flood control for about 10 years. And when we originally approved this project, we didn't realize the impact is about 65% of the project falls within the 100-year plane, and almost makes the project unfeasible without that. Well, the good news is, as you know, that flood control was finally underway, and we expect to have it completed in 2024. Well, as staff suggested, since our time had elapsed on the conditional use permit, we thought, well, can we come up with something new? Now, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we call a problem in senior care today. And I'm sure, I thought that the program before about the food bank was great. They happened to mention COVID. And a couple of slides that are in front of you, the top right was the typical dining room in COVID time. The left was a great day of when we had Mother's Day, and notice the interaction between mom and grandma. Kind of a sad story. For a year, our seniors were locked down. It was like they were in custody, and it was really kind of a sad environment, and it was really touching my wife going, what can we do? Because the only thing the state was allowing us to do was deliver meals to the rooms. And worse is that for months and months and months, the children couldn't come visit. It was, I've never seen anything like this. So I want to talk to you about a typical reason why I want you to consider that this project should be developed. So that's Mr. and Mrs. Jones. So let's just presume that Mr. and Mrs. Jones live at Shadow Hills, and Mr. Jones last year had a stroke. He's slowing down. He was an avid golfer, and mom is having a rough time when it comes to bathing and so forth, and so the daughter has moved back into the golf course house. She's recently gone through a divorce and is talking to mom and dad about living in a senior community. Now, you saw our project in Marietta. Now, when Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they visit the facility, dad starts complaining, well, wait a minute, I haven't been in an apartment house since I was in college. I want to be at home. Of course, the problem is that the home no longer works for mom and dad. So dad moves in. He's in the facility for about 6 months, and all of a sudden, his memory starts failing. He can't find his way to the dining room, can't find his way back to the apartment. So what do we have to do in the state of California? We get the privilege of sending him to the doctor, and then the doctor says, oh, Mr. Jones has dementia. So now we have a situation where Mr. Jones is sent to memory care. Mrs. Jones can't be under the state guidelines in memory care. So the bill goes from 5 to 12. What happens? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, even if they're financially affluent, living in Shadow Hills, can't afford that, they move back. It's not a matter of time, but under this scenario, it really is something that doesn't work. If dad doesn't get proper care, he will pass. It's generally the case. Now, all of a sudden, Mrs. Jones is living with a daughter. She's developed weight, and she needs to go back to assisted care. Of course, now the daughter living, who was divorced, she wants to live in the facility with her. Can't. And this is the problem today in assisted memory care. It is not a problem just for Renaissance, it's an industry problem. So our site is located directly across from the entrance to Shadow Hills, but there are many, as you know, as planning commissioners, within the city of Indio, and outlining that there's so many golf course communities. So what we want to propose is a concept that basically allows seniors to age in place. The problem with the typical golf course house is simple. It wasn't designed to be ADA compliant. And the reason for that is, as an old builder, I've been at it for a long time now, we don't want to have the house look institutional, so we kind of get around that. But there comes a time where we have to have a house that, how do we bathe mom? Here's the problem. The average master bedroom is never designed to get 2 caregivers to bathe mom. One little caregiver at 100 pounds can't handle it, and so it takes 2. So we're going to just explore a little bit about a concept that we like to do. With about a 3,500-foot recreational building, we can do something that's going across the country, is that we can have maybe 1 meal a day. The whole idea is to kind of reduce the cost a little bit versus 3 meals a day. But more importantly, we can have home health nurses in the building. And let me explain a little bit about this. We're going to be proposing a concept of concierge that's spreading across the country. It hasn't come into California yet, that basically we put home health nurses that can be contracted by individual apartments that get around having to have the state tell them what to do. You realize, for example, if Mrs. Jones moves into an assisted facility, she wants an aspirin, the doctor better prescribe it, because if not, we can't do it. And it's just all kinds of types of things that preclude that. So here what we're talking about is personalized care, all types of things, housekeeping, home health, pet services, and so forth, but done in an environment that everything is single story, no steps. That's the key. And we worked a lot with staff, is that we've come up with a design that basically allows dad to have the car, but eventually when he can't drive anymore, we might be able to give him a golf cart and he can go next door. But the whole thing is designed to comply with, I think, Indio's vision for new modern architecture, but at the same time meet the needs of seniors. The slide that's in front of you is the concept of universal design. We've talked a little bit about this, but it's basically having a bathroom large enough that we can get 2 caregivers in a home health setting to bathe mom or bathe dad, because there'll become a time that they just have to have these types of services. We're proposing in this concept that we would have a cluster concept where the villages would have an environment to create social interaction. We think that it's an absolute stellar design, guard-gated. But the whole concept is basically where mom and dad could rent versus own. That's basically the program and the scenario. I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Okay, thank you. So I guess we have questions or comments for the applicant? Okay, I can start. So have you explored other properties that might not require all of this like amendment process? You know, because we are having a conversation around this type of land designation or zoning later on in the agenda, actually. I just wanted to understand why here and not anywhere else.
Sure. First of all, it's directly across from from Shadow Hills. There are many, many senior communities that are running parallel to the 40th Street. Why here? It's the perfect location. For example, when mom and dad need to age a little bit, let's say, you know, for example, I think that Shadow Hills came online about 2006, and we could probably say that if a person's 60, they're now 80, and there's going to become a time where, imagine if you were an active golfer, you can't play golf anymore. You think you want to go to the clubhouse and pay the $500 a month dues? No, it's no fun. But this allows you to be next to your friends, interact. And so, for example, when we proposed in 2013 to do assisted memory care, it was unanimously approved. We had no objections. And at the end of the day, I think the community needs this in a very desperate way, because it's something that I gave you, you know, a perfect example that happens all the time. Imagine if your mom develops, you know, Alzheimer's, and your rent goes from 5 to 12. It's just your average family can't handle that. And so could it go somewhere else? Of course it could. But, you know, we've had the property for a long time. Could it go industrial? So if that is your choice, I think that in that location, industrial isn't the best use. I think you have great properties along parallel in the freeway and so forth, but that's up to you. If you come back and say you don't like the project, well, then we'll have to come up with something else. We're not trying to do something you don't want to do. But we think that we have given something that can be not only cutting edge for the seniors, there's absolutely a need.
Thank you. And my other question is regarding conversations with IID. Is that something that you all already started as far as making sure that, you know, we're able to sustain
I'm sorry,
service?
I'm not familiar with vernacular.
Imperial Irrigation District.
We have?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Alex handles all of our community relations, but we have reached out to everyone on this. And we think that we have, the architecture team out of Orange County is absolutely stellar. The idea of developing rental housing, single story, that allows seniors to age in place is a very needed product. In fact, we can give you examples. Welltower, which is one of the largest senior REITs in the country, coming out of Ohio, is developing this product. In Florida, Las Vegas is starting to go in this direction, and we think that there's just an absolute need.
Gotcha. Okay, so just for clarification purposes, you have gotten the green light from Imperial Irrigation District that we are able to sustain this type of community and provide power?
I'm going to let Alex respond to that.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, to answer your question, yes, we've already worked with IID. Will serve letter, and as well as an easement adjustment's been approved and voted on by their board. So we're in compliance with them, and we've been working with them before we even started with the city, because we understood that power is extremely important, and they're working with us. But we also do have a solar component, and we will have charging stations for those who do have electronic cars on the facility or in the site. So if some of the residents that move in, they would also be able to charge their cars on site.
Thank you. That's it from, yeah, Jackie.
So I'm just trying to understand this. What you had proposed before was,
Assisted in memory care. Assisted in memory care.
you had that proposed before, and
Yes.
then everything kind of went out, right? It expired.
Yes, to recap, Mrs. Lopez, what happened is, typically when you're going through a conditional use, you'll be using conceptual plans, conceptual civil engineering. We did all that. But then flood control became more active. And all of a sudden, our great site was a great site, but subject to the 100-year floodplain. And with studies from our civil engineer, 60% of that project until the flood control channel was developed would be not buildable. So that really kind of put a damper on the whole thing. Then we had COVID. And so out of COVID, and I gave you the examples of the lockdown, how many people here don't think we probably get something else coming soon? It's possible. Who would ever thought we would have had COVID? Not till the back to World War I. But today, with everyone traveling internationally and so forth, it could happen anytime. The whole advantage of this, the real key, is the seniors don't have to be in that community setting. They can go to the clubhouse, but if something came and was a problem with infectious control, then they're back in their own unit, in their own home, much safer. And let me just spin one more issue. For example, let's say that we've got these seniors in these single apartments. We can't, in an assisted memory care, I can't put cameras in the rooms. So let's say, for example, with Siri and the daughter wants to see how Mrs. Jones is doing per day. Can't have it. But in this, we can, because the state's not involved. And it's just a whole different program that I think that it's going to make the kids a lot happier, the seniors as a great alternative, and it's something we're willing to put our money with, because it's not a simple project. But we would love to do it if you.
I have some other questions.
Sure.
In regards to, so you have a project similar to this in Murrieta. Who are your seniors, and who qualifies for
Sure.
something like
This is market rate. So I guess if I would give you a profile, let's just say we moved into the Shadow Hills Golf Course, 15 years ago. Now we've got some of them that are in their 80s, and when they start to frail or to decline health-wise, then that's when they need this type of living environment. And we're proposing it as a complete alternative to the payment and the expense of assisted and memory care.
And I guess my question is for Mr. Ramirez. When does your will serve letter expire with IID?
It was just issued, like literally just issued 2 months ago, so I didn't check the expiration date, but yes, it was just issued. I think it's sufficient through our process that we're starting with you immediately. Also, to address the jobs issue, we would be creating jobs as well as reducing traffic impact, which are part of our studies that we're in the process of doing right now and completing. But for the people that are concerned, or when you take into consideration you're losing industrial complexes and jobs, we're actually producing jobs and reduces impact by reducing greenhouse gases and traffic.
Okay. And I guess I'll hold, the other questions I have is for mainly staff, but that's.
Yes.
Okay, I think I vaguely remember when you came here in 2013.
10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, don't remind me. It's been a couple years. But I remember everybody was very
See,
excited
you've
about it.
gotten younger and I got older.
Oh,
so that's
perfect.
it.
Yeah, that's great. But I remember everybody being very excited because it was going to be right across
Right.
the street from Sun City Shadow Hills. And I think one of the things I know a little bit about assisted living. My dad's lived in it. I deal with a business that has a lot of elderly people. And so I kind of have seen that whole process where they can no longer live in their country club or in their home that they've lived in for 30, 40 years. So when you said that this is their own home and it's a rented space, so they're not going to buy in. It's not
No.
one of those where you would make a big down payment and you would own it, and then when you pass
No,
away,
it's
you
not
sell
a
it.
life care
Okay,
type
It's not
buy-in.
a life care.
No.
So it is more of just of a rental,
It's a
a
plus-
lifestyle living with all of these amenities. So instead of a golf course and bunco club or all these different things you get in the country clubs, you would get these other services that you would buy a la carte.
Yes.
Right? What do you need?
Yeah, you would get, for example, we feel the key is, one is the concierge. Second is the full-time activity director. Third is the, kind of like a chef that's in there. but more importantly, the security guard, 24/7. That security guard, for example, let's talk about dementia, and I'm not trying to be redundant on this, but it's a problem today. Dad can be moving into an apartment, feeling fine, have a light stroke, go back to the doctor, he's diagnosed with dementia. He gets to go to memory care. It's extremely expensive. And I'll tell you what usually happens is Dad gets so despondent, he just gives up and passes. Under this community, under being gated, I can do with series and some of these new things you see on television, I fall and can't get up. There's marvelous things that can be out there that the kids will be notified, the security. And it's going to provide them an alternative to age with dignity versus, the environments of what is presently available.
Okay, so when we think of these assisted living places, there is a lot of state oversight. Like you said, you can't even get an aspirin without your doctor saying you can have it. So since this is not going to be considered that type of facility, who's going to be overseeing, I guess, some of these seniors?
Sure. We're going to be suggesting that the seniors, and they have the option, but the whole concept is home health care. So we will have within the clubhouse, and the best one I can talk to you about would be Holiday Senior Communities, which ran by Welltower. They have like 200 of them. What they do is they provide an apartment setting. They provide space so that, for example, imagine if we have 160 units, I'm just rounding it, but we double it because we have mom and dad, now we're up to 320. You can have a couple full-time nurses in there that can be doing a visit once a day under a home health setting. Now those nurses are licensed, but they work for mom and dad in the apartment versus the state regulations of what is required in an assisted and memory care community.
Okay.
That's the difference in the concept.
Okay, so, I like the concept. I think it's definitely, I know that there's a lot of downfalls in the senior care living. I mean, I understand that sometimes that is the best option we have, but there is some serious problems there. With the fact that we've been talking about the light industrial and our land space, and the fact that you're going to have to go through a general plan amendment, a zoning plan amendment, all of these different things. Are you going to be willing to go through all this? This is going to be time consuming, and I don't know how long. I will ask that of staff. So you've taken all of this into consideration and have already spent 10 years prior to this, and you are still committed to moving forward, and you think this is the best space for this?
Well, let me give you in Southern terms, and then some. Okay? I'm very committed.
Okay.
I think that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. We believe in this product, and I believe there's something that's needed in the community, not just in Indio, but in the whole immediate area. It's something that I think that could grow significantly, not only for, to serve residents here in the city, but also for our company. And that's why we're willing to go through that process.
Do you have other projects like this you have the one you said?
Well, we have two that we built, and one of the things I want to make sure you understand, we operate them too. My wife does that. So we understand the business, and her concept is, what could you do as an alternative to make a better lifestyle for the seniors?
So you're not planning to build it and then let somebody else manage it?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tan. Just a couple of follow-up questions that Commissioner Franz had kind of alluded to. So, knowing the community very well, I used to work right up the street at the school from Sun City Shadow Hills, so very familiar with the community and the partnership that we had with Sun City. Question I have is, obviously, I love the opportunity to provide this type of housing to those folks who may not be able to afford their current residential home with all the different amenities once they reach a certain maturity. The question I have is really about oversight, and I realize that there may be some opportunities there as a result of some of the home care opportunities. But can you explain to us, have there been any concerns at your other properties for a matter of public record to ensure that we know what those issues or concerns might be, to be able to address those should that become a question from the public.
Yeah, actually,
Thank
one
you.
thing that we're extremely proud of is during COVID, when everybody else was locked down and nobody could get testing, nobody could get service, we were concerned that a potential employee had gotten COVID because she didn't come into work. She didn't report in, so we didn't know why. Mr. Rattan's efforts and with our relationships that we've established with elected officials throughout the state at every level, we were able to get everybody in our facility tested in less than 24 hours, provided with any care that was needed, and we made sure that no outbreaks at either facility were happening at our facility. So that's something that we're really proud of. We go above and beyond when it comes to caring for seniors. We know the reputation of a lot of facilities, and if you ever visit any of the facilities, and you're welcome to, they're honestly probably some of the most beautiful places you've ever seen. You'd probably expect to think that you're walking into a resort, and we take that into consideration, but we also take their care and the level of care to be above question and above reproach. And we hope that, and we could actually bring some seniors and probably some video testimony of some of the things that we've done for our seniors. We're actually pretty proud of one of the things that we do. We have our Veteran of the Year that we recognize in our senior facilities. We do pretty much just about a celebration every month, birthdays and different things. We keep them active, and we've actually had results of some of the seniors improving their health, comparatively speaking, to when they came in a wheelchair, and they're able to walk and be on a walker after, just from being in that environment, that positive environment, that good health, that good meal, that good attention. It really changes people and extends their lives, and that's something that we're extremely proud of, and we look forward to bringing that to Indio because we know it's a need everywhere, but we got to start where we're at. And I'd like to add that it wasn't our fault that we were addressed by the flood, we were impacted by the flood control, but we're here and committed to following through. We've already spent money. It's already being spent on studies and research and going forward. We've already addressed the relationships that need to be addressed with concerns from, the tribal, IID, different things like that. We're being proactive. And so we think that, we understand the change in zoning to industrial, and we're okay with that, but we took that into consideration, and we're going to provide jobs on site that are going to be there. And one thing that Mr. Rattan didn't address, we're actually going to have a medical office in that rec center where somebody could come and see their doctor. Their doctor can come to them. They don't have to travel to an office. That's something we haven't seen in over 50 years. That's going to be different to the area, and we look forward to bringing things like that more often to California.
You mentioned entitlements. One of my specialties, and I've been doing this for a long time, we're very proud of our relationship with the city of Moreno Valley. We had a site about the same, and we went through a zone change there, and they're very excited. We did a mixed use on the property, including some retail. We did a zone change there too, and I would encourage you to talk to the mayor about what we do. We're kind of old guard. We do what we say. Love to have you come look at our Murrieta facility, because one of the advantages of that one is right across from a Del Webb, except the community was built in the late 80s. Today, if you were living in that senior community across from us, the average age is 85. We call it the denial community because the seniors, they just don't want to go into assisted and memory care when they need it. This is going to provide an alternative for the children. And then I want to talk, if you'll give me one more minute, about one issue. A lot of times, and the reason I think home health is a better concept for this, is that when seniors start to age and they need more care, you have to sit down with the children, and sometimes the children start seeing that estate going down, down, down. Well, here they can own the home, rent the home out, and there's a lot of alternatives under this concept that I think is a win-win for the children too, because the estate isn't declined. We've done a lot of thought about this, and we're really excited about it and hope to be a good team member to actually bring this project to fruition.
And thank you for that, Mr. Dan. And just one more question, if I may. With respect to the home hospital caregivers, who vets those out? Who hires them? Is there contracted out, or are they direct hires?
We do, but the resident will have the sole option of contracting to whomever they want. But really the beautiful concept is that if the residents will choose one group, then they're going to get more economies of scale, that those visiting nurses are going to know those residents versus I'm going to call mom and Mrs. Jones came in today and Mary Beth came in. So we think that's a much better thing. So we'll be responsible for the properties, the overall management, and because we will own and operate the apartments, if we find that, let's say, we contracted with the home health and that's going directly with the resident, but if they're unhappy, we can look for another one to do a better job.
Thank you.
I have a follow. You mentioned that you will be creating jobs, which is a concern
Sure.
with the zoning. Can you speak on
We
maybe
can.
the
I'm going to bring
range
my
of-
associate, Mr. Riddle, up here because that's going to be his gig, okay?
Great, thank you.
We come prepared.
Hi, thank you all for being here tonight. Yes, it is going to create jobs. We have an economic impact analysis report showing about 831 being created. About 600 of those are construction, and the bulk of the other 230 are finance, real estate, insurance, and healthcare.
And what about the more long-term sort of, operations, administration, things like that? What is the longer-term, job creation?
Again, so at least 230 of those are permanent long-term jobs. Many of them are called induced jobs, which mean they're outside the property, but are directly related to the development of the property. And then on-site, of course, we'll have, a handful of full-time positions. Caregivers will be there, security guards, activities directors, concierge, property management, leasing, all of that will be there.
We'd be happy to provide you a copy of the report, of course.
Will this be 100% market rate housing?
Yes.
Okay. No special programs for veterans or any
Well,
more
what we
affordable
always,
programs?
for example, I'm a proud member of the Sons of the American Revolution, which basically I had an ancestor that served the Revolutionary War. We're big on veterans. My son is a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and we always try to do our best to help them.
Okay. And is there any sort of qualifications beyond age or is age a
A lot of
qualification?
veterans are not aware, but there's a thing called veterans attendance. They're up to about $2,500 a month. And we belong to several organizations that help them apply. If they're living in their golf course and they forgot that they're, that as a veteran, they're eligible for. It's a federal and a state program.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any comments, any sort of suggestions that you'd like to make to the applicant?
No, I think I'd like to hear from staff regarding all of these zoning and general plan amendments and all of these things that we've worked so hard over the last few years on. I want to see what staff is thinking on those areas.
Before I comment on that, I just wanted to remind the commissioners that this is your early opportunity to look at their building designs and make any comments on any potential building designs that you may have. Also, as far as the general plan amendment and the zoning amendment, we mentioned that it would be taking away from our limited industrial land uses. So that's just something to keep in mind. There are other areas within the city that are zoned connected neighborhood 14, which is what this facility would require. So there are other available properties within the city that have more of that density alignment that would be required for this project.
Are there any properties within the same area? Because it seems like that's a big plus for them being near that community of Sun City Shadow Hills.
There's actually a property that I'm seeing on our GIS map that is located off of Madison Street and Avenue 42 that is zoned connected neighborhood 14, so it's just on the opposite side of the Sun City community. I was speaking with Kevin, and it may be governed by the Gateway specific plan, but that's something that we can look into a bit more and get back to the applicant on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Kendra, if they were to move forward with this general plan and the zoning, and if we were to say that this is something we're interested in looking at, what kind of timeline would it take to get this through basically our process, the city's process?
That would depend on the completeness of the application, and then we would have to go to you guys to get your recommendation to city council, and then that would then have to go, it would then go to city council to get their approval, and then I believe it would have to come back to you guys for a design review, so that could take anywhere from probably 8 to 12 months.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I want to say is when it comes to the design review, I think the design is very nice. The idea of cottages for seniors, I think, is amazing. The fact that it will be built specifically for the needs of seniors, and that they would have a place to be able to age, hopefully a little bit more gracefully than what we currently offer, is impressive. I am concerned with the general plan and the zoning amendments. We've worked really hard on that for the last few years. I'm not saying this is an absolute no, but I definitely would like to hear from the other commissioners to see what we're all thinking. But the concept itself, I think, is brilliant, and I think could definitely make a change and give seniors another option.
And if I could say, thank you for that. I will say that one of the things, obviously, you're aware of the housing shortage that's going on, and that's something that we spoke with staff when we met with Kevin, and he gave us a window of 6 to 9 months for full processing and get to approval. We've met with the city manager. We're being very proactive. And the one thing that we took into consideration in this development is the duplex, triplex model, because you can have a daughter, a son, as well as the senior couple or the senior, so you can have more than one person in that residence. And that's a beautiful thing, because you're now providing housing for the person in need plus their family member, which usually helps the situation as well, which is not allowed in assisted living.
One other concept. Freeways are natural barriers. And when we bought this site, and we were very pleased to obtain the conditional use to do the senior care, the freeway ramps hadn't even been put in yet. And so the market window is important to us, because as we come off of Jefferson, and if we're going to go into Del Webb, we're right across the street. And so that's traffic. Put us on the other side, not so much. And in residential, whether it be multifamily, it's very important in your location. And we really feel that this is a win for the city. I think you're going to do better in the jobs that we can create. We can certainly do that, but we're just asking for your flexibility in this. It's not a huge amount of loss, but I think we create a better environment and better jobs.
Thank you. Yes.
Staff, how many assisted facilities or I know we don't have anything like that quite like this in our city, but how many senior or assisted facility living do we have in our city currently?
Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. I believe we have, I'm going to say 2, Horizons, which is off of Monroe, and I'm blanking on the name of the other one. I could see it in my head, but I'm blanking on the name. So I believe we have 2. There was a proposal for a project several years ago in 2018 that was proposed as an assisted living facility along Avenue 48 west of Monroe, but that project has not proceeded, and they reported that based on changes in the industry from their perspective, they didn't anticipate proceeding with that, at least the assisted living concept on that property.
Do we have any in the queue right now that have been proposed that they're on the shelf, or kind of like this situation?
We don't have any in the queue. Obviously, they can walk in tomorrow, but we don't have any in the queue. We do have other projects that are focused on various income levels, but are not focused exclusively on senior housing. So this would be the most current project if this gets consideration and ultimately goes forward.
My last question, Director Snyder. Given that we are the largest city in the city of Indio, and what we could say is, are we prepared for this silver tsunami, what they say is the seniors? Which, like my parents and Gloria's parents, do you think 2 facilities that we have currently, it will suffice that?
Okay, so first of all, I may be on the latter stages of that silver tsunami, so I'm going to take that a little personally, but I'm going to go forward anyway. It's an interesting question. I mean, all communities struggle with adequate provision of housing for all individuals of age, background, gender, ethnicity. So, the City of Indio, our housing element that you all worked on and that was certified in April of 2022, that tries to address by promoting more diverse housing product types in our city that go beyond what has historically been Indio's primary housing type, which has been single-family residential, which has been the primary type of housing that's been built in Indio for the last roughly 30-plus years. So you're seeing, and this commission has helped in diversifying that product type most recently with several of the housing projects that has come before the commission. So the applicant that's speaking about their project, this is another opportunity to diversify housing product type if you believe this is the appropriate location, notwithstanding the zoning and general plan issues. We're just talking about housing. So you as a commission and the city council have supported the concept of diverse housing product types in our city, serving all income levels of our community. So having more diverse housing product type, Commissioner Lopez, I think helps in responding to that quote-unquote silver tsunami. So hopefully that answers.
And one more last question, guys, one more. What do we have planned around, do we have anything planned around the property? Do we have any, like, as far as this industrial, do we have anything like any hospitals or clinics going in around? Has anybody proposed that? Or are we getting another, like, self-storage place?
We have not received any inquiries pertaining to medical facilities or hospitals in that vicinity, but there has been an inquiry for the parcel just north on the other side of the street for a self-storage facility or a landscaping storage facility.
And if I might add, this is proximate also to the Desert Retreat project that Pulte Homes has proposed that you've heard about and that they're working on a specific plan and environmental impact report for. So that project is 1,500 homes, market rate, 1,500 homes, 55 plus gated communities. So that is another housing product type, but again, more in that single family orientation we've been talking about.
Thank you. That's all I have to say. That's it.
Okay. Any comments? No? Then I guess I would just, as a comment, we had a project come to us for consultation just a couple weeks ago, or maybe a little further than that, that was addressing a very specific demographic. So a lot of the same elements, and the entire commission was very concerned about making adjustments or making amendments to the general plan and to the zoning. And so I think I would just encourage you to see what other properties that are already zoned with housing. And I understand you're saying the clientele
Can I
is
be
right.
candid?
Yeah.
If you don't want us to do it.
If I could just finish my comment, sir.
We won't go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I think you should ask the question, since we've owned this for 10 years, there's been at least 4 projects, assisted memory care, that came through the city, didn't go. They're not in the right locations. They're on the other side of the freeway. That's where they were approved. And sometimes what you have to do, respectfully, is look at the plan and say, is it working?
I understand, sir.
And so I'm just saying, we want to do whatever's good for you. And if our project isn't good for you, we own the land, we'll just sell it.
Sure.
That's where we are. And because I have no desire to go across the street or look that we've spent time and energy. We think that there's high merit in that, but we don't want to be one telling you what to do. That's your job, telling me what to do.
I appreciate that. So I just want to say, for consistency's sake, we have seen, and this is, I think, why consultation is good.
Right.
Because we want to not give the wrong impression that there are some that we're willing or some that we're not willing. I'm not speaking for everyone here, but I just want to make sure that, we are also going to stay consistent. We've worked we've worked really hard in making sure that we have outlined how we're integrating communities. At this point, this would be continuing to push that demographic out to a certain area that I think would probably benefit more from connectivity, from access to, I really like what you said about the mixed use element to another site because of...
Well, for example, across from the high school, and no disrespect of a mini storage, but I think a better use would be, maybe some medical facilities in there. And when you start going in one direction and you put the mini storage, you cast the stone. It's just a suggestion.
Okay, I appreciate that, so I'll finish my comment. And so for me, I just want to communicate to you that this is where I, particularly myself, I'm seeing, and I want to see this consistency. I don't want us to be giving the wrong impression. And again, because we just had a very similar project, and of which the entire commission very much said, we want this, we want this, we very much want this, we want this in our city, and we want housing. It's a huge need. And particularly for this demographic, what I don't want us to be doing is to discourage certain applicants who own the property, who've been planning something there for a while, and then the zoning is not reflective of it, and we encourage them to look for other sites to bring your project to us. So my comment is for consistency, to stay consistent in that I think for myself, you know, I would like to see us in pushing what we have worked so hard in the last few years with our housing element, our general plan that is outlining how we're integrating communities instead of segregating or pushing them out. And so I had a concern about the power. I'm glad that you all have already talked to IID about that, because, you know, it's a lot of folks that would be moving in there. And so for me, I think, you know, development, infill, density, connectivity, transportation, commercial access, all of those things to me, I think, are of a lot of benefit that that your clientele could benefit from. And so for me, I, as I'm saying, I think that there is other places in the city that could accommodate you, and you wouldn't have to go through this process. So what I'm saying is, I like your project. As far as the design is concerned, it looks very complete. And so I would be very interested in seeing this type of project come to our city, just not have to go through all of these amendments and changes, since it's not something that we're encouraging other applicants to do.
And Mr. Chairman, I very much appreciate that. The difference in my company is we're not a development spec group. That's not what we do. We own, we build, and we operate. That's how we have become pretty successful. I think that this is the right location at the right spot. I brought up Continental Villages in Reno Valley because we went through the very similar things. For example, we bought that property 12 years ago next to the junior college. The school was saying, we want to see retail there. We bought it to do condominiums, but dialogue ensued like we're having, and we didn't agree in the beginning. But you know what? They're going to get that little retail component that helps the students and so forth. But we did a complete general plan amendment to accommodate that because both sides sat down and talked. Here, as a company, we basically have told our investment group, this is where we're going. If I change directions, then to save my face, I have to say, well, unfortunately, we didn't sell the city, and they need to do what they need to do. We want to come here, and we hope that we can change your mind that this is the right location.
Then my recommendation for that is consider all the other things, connectivity, commercial access, you know, I think all of those things, if you're still intending to move forward, and I think that's why this is good, a good starting point for this conversation is what are those other elements that can enhance, that are going to create more jobs? Because this is a real concern, and like I said, it's something that's we're discussing further down in the agenda just today. It just so happens that we're going to be considering how to maximize light industrial zoning. And so for me, it's if we can get you, and so I was very much on board when you said we're going to create some jobs, and then we said, well, long-term locals, who, you know, it's a handful. So what can we do so that this project maximizes something like that, so that if you're going to be moving forward anyway, that it's addressing the things and the needs that are important for that type of zoning?
Thank you, Commissioner Ceja, if I may. That's something that we'll definitely vet out completely. We will continue to do more research. We had spoken to city staff about other alternative options, and this is the direction that we came to an agreement with staff that serves the most need, because we're providing housing and jobs. So I hear what you're saying, and we can look and see how we can create more jobs that would also help pacify the potential lost light industrial jobs. Well, we can commit to that.
Thank you.
if I may, could I get a reaction? Do you like the project at its location or not? Because that's really kind of what we need to know.
So, well, do you want to make a comment, and then I think you want to hear from everyone,
Sure.
whether?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so if you could. Make your-
It's just a, right. Right.
So, Ms. Lopez.
You know, I've been really critical about preserving certain parts of when it comes to zoning. But I guess I really do like, and I see the need, knowing that my parents are like going into their golden years. And the fact that you've acquired this piece of land for the last 10, 12 years and dealing with CBWD and FEMA probably most likely
Yes.
is, and so I would be in favor of your project and just kind of want to see what my fellow commissioners think. But, I
Thank
think
you.
there's sometimes you have to outweigh, like, again, I'm very particular about like storage facilities and the fact that they employ maybe 5 to 7 people or less. When you have something like your project, which is directly across the street from another community, a senior community, and again, we talk about like the freeway access to emergency, to the Eisenhower Care Facility campus, which is off of Washington Street, which is not too, just down the road, and the other hospital is alongside the freeway.
Right.
And so, so those are my thoughts and.
Yeah,
and
we
my-
love the ramp system. It's perfect for emergency services.
Thank you. Mr. Fajardo?
Thank you. I, for one, am in favor of this project at the existing site that you folks currently own and operate. Future, right, with operations, but, currently with respect to your
Commissioner,
future.
I apologize,
Oh,
I
I'm
have to
sorry.
interrupt. The commission cannot make statements in terms of being in favor. This is not a formal decision-making. You could express your
Sure.
thoughts and ideas, but I just would encourage the commission to avoid the use of words in favor, because this is not an advertised public hearing. It's not a formal decision-making
Kevin.
forum, and it would be inappropriate for the planning commission to guide the applicant in any false way by saying that you favor or don't favor something, because you're not making any sort of formal decision this evening. We have to follow our process. This is just, in essence, this is a meet and greet opportunity to share thoughts and ideas, and I apologize for interrupting you, Commissioner. I just didn't want any
Not at
members
all.
of the public in the audience or watching to get the impression that some sort of decision is being made this evening.
I
So
appreciate
my
that,
sincere
Kevin.
apologies.
No problem. I retract that statement,
Okay, I
gentlemen. I, for one, would obviously support the concept with respect to providing an opportunity for certain clientele, particularly in that community that I'm so familiar with. The number one thing that I've always been told by folks that reside in Sun City specifically is the trust for what would be an independent living facility.
Correct.
With respect to operations, the support staff, the availability of home hospital care. My brother, he works in home hospital and hospice care, so I've got a lot of insight into that, and I see the need in our community for something similar to this. And the fact that it will be connected to Sun City, and with some neighboring areas there for retail, provides an opportunity for perhaps residents to take advantage of that. The concern that I have with respect to the questions that we alluded to earlier, but now also thinking of traffic patterns, because I know that that area, residents will always argue that traffic is a problem on Jefferson, in that area specifically, particularly during the hours of 7:30 and 8:30 and 2:30 and 4 o'clock, with the egress and ingress of school traffic. And while I realize that you folks will, work with the city to provide that report on traffic, and certain studies may show that it may reduce certain traffic patterns, those are just some general concerns of mine for that particular property, just knowing some of the concerns and challenges that I've had in the past as principal of that school with the city, with traffic issues, and with CHP and IPD.
Here's
That's
the
my
good,
comment.
here's the good news. Probably average age is going to be 80, And if traffic was a problem in the morning, they're not going to come out. They might go out once a day for lunch, something like that, but it's very minimal.
Mr. Chairman?
I would say that this project addresses some important needs, first being housing, especially for a segment of the population that it's critical. As far as the conditional use for it to be switched over, it seems like even though it's not light industrial, it could possibly provide more long-term jobs than other certain businesses that might want to be in that area. So I'd like to hear more when the time comes.
Franz?
I think that as much as we've been protecting our industrial space, if I was going to consider something that it might be worth giving up a little bit of that space, this is probably one of those projects. So, I mean, without seeing, of course, the final plan and everything coming before us and making sure everything goes through, we can't say yay, but we can definitely say it's interesting, it's unique, and I think it, you know, it could possibly be a great addition to our community.
Think of it like it's our first date. And we didn't say no, so that's okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think, you know how I feel. And, I just want to say that, I have seen a lot of participation from the community, particularly last week. We just had a lot of community come out. And so I'm not surprised that we are hot and cold with some folks because this has been a consistent way in the 2 years that I've been in the commission of when, people will support some projects. So all I'm saying is the community, I think, will be very interested in following this along. And so I just want to say, let's make sure that if we're not going to be sticking to what we have promised to the community is our development of, moving forward, if the rest of the commission doesn't feel that way, then at the very minimum, let's make sure that if you're going to come and propose a project of which is going to go against our general plan and our zoning, that it's going to be addressing the issues that we have identified with our light industrial. So at this moment, I don't think this project is correct for this zoning, or it goes against what we have. And I think we as a commission have a commitment of our choices. And so I'm very interested not only to see just what the commission is saying, but also how the community is going to feel about us not being able to move something forward for a different demographic and allow for this type of demographic. It just seems off to me. And so I can tell you, just as a community person, not even being here, it's of concern to me that this is the way that things are. And so I would say just, let's pay attention to the types of jobs we're creating, and if you're going to move forward, how we're addressing the concerns of the commission. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for your input. We appreciate it. I would like you to take into consideration before we come back, because we will come back. The jobs that we're going to be creating are high-paying jobs, and we can come up with a plan to ensure that a certain percentage of the community brings in those high-paying nurse jobs. That's something that we can do. We can push for that. We can bring those type of jobs and make sure that the residents are getting that care that they need, but also creating those jobs that are not your standard light industrial minimum wage type jobs. That's something that I think is a selling point to consider, that really kind of sets the bar up a little bit higher, because you're bringing a different type of person that's probably going to become a resident if they aren't already a resident with a higher income bracket. That helps with everything that revolves around the city. But from me, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate the input.
We appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public.
I would like
Yes.
to add a
Please,
little bit to that. Just to go over some permitted uses in the light industrial land use designation and zoning designation. That would be consistent of medical offices, grocery stores, things of that nature. So I know the applicant made a comment pertaining to only mini storages. I just wanted to clarify what uses are permitted in that area. So medical uses, like they referenced, are actually an allowable use. I also wanted to add on the record that in regards to traffic, for the SEQA requirements, they will be addressing that as part of their initial study. So that will be something that will be addressed when they come back to present to you guys. And then per staff recommendation, we discussed with them previously that we would like to see an economic development study done just to show that there is an appropriate need for the general plan and zoning plan in that area.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Gene. All right. Let's
If
move
I
on
could-
to.
Just 1 second. Just so you're informed, we've already finished our traffic study. It does show that we actually reduce the impact. Second, we have done that fiscal economic impact study as well. Like I said, we've spent money out of our pockets to make sure that we are providing the right tools. And ultimately, I think you'll be surprised when we come back with how positive and the results are for this. But we have been approached by 5 different storage facilities that do want to buy this property, and we've turned them all down, just so you know.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Okay, moving on to public hearing item 6.1, design review. Is there a staff report?
Okay, so, good evening, commissioners. I believe it's still evening. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you guys again. Manuel Rocha, Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. Agenda item 6.1 is a design review approval request for Shy Design Consulting Corporation to allow the construction of a 3-story, 20-unit mixed-use apartment building within the downtown area. The applicant is a Shy Design Consulting Corporation. The parcel has a land use designation under the 2040 General Plan of Downtown and is zoned downtown neighborhood under the Downtown Specific Plan. Under the Downtown Specific Plan, apartments and commercial uses in the downtown neighborhood zone are a permitted use. The proposed project will consist of 20 residential units and 1 ground floor commercial space on approximately 0.34 acres. Floor plans range between 297 square feet and 1,005 square feet, with the tallest building height being 41 feet. Amenities for the residents consist of a courtyard area with a barbecue, pool, and spa. The project site is located on a vacant lot in downtown Indio along Oasis Street, parcel numbers 611151017 and 611151018. The figure before you represents the floor plans of the proposed building. The development will have a total build-up area of 32,624 square feet with a floor area ratio of 18,956 square feet. The first floor will consist of 2 ADA compliant apartment units and 1 manager apartment unit, in addition to 1 retail-ready unit, a barbecue, pool, and spa. The first floor will contain an entry courtyard with a water feature. Going back to this one, the main enclosed parking garage for the project site will contain 21 parking spaces on the first floor, with one of the spaces being reserved for handicap parking. Additional parking is also available on the adjacent street off of Oasis Street. The main entry access will be solely available through the alleyway and into the parking garage. The second floor will contain 3 2-bedroom units and 6 1-bedroom units, equaling a total of 9 apartment units on the second floor. The third floor will contain 8 2-bedroom units and 1 1-bedroom units, equaling a total of 9 apartment units on this floor. The mezzanine before you shows that there will be an opening in the middle. The mezzanine will not be set up for rooftop lounging. The architectural elevations reflect a modern building facade with an overall building height of 41 feet at the top of the parapet and 40 feet at the maximum roof level. Exterior finishes include metal coping, powder-coated aluminum, board foam concrete, iron gates, and composite wood sidings. Please note that the applicant did provide a materials board for you guys to see today. Landscape plan. So the proposed landscape areas are along the perimeter of the project site and within the apartment building open spaces. The proposed landscape consists of palms and trees that include but are not limited to the Mexican fan palm and the Italian cypress. There are several shrubs proposed, including but not limited to the century plant, heavenly bamboo, and the green carpet. The proposed project is compliant with the General Plan 2040. It is also compliant with the downtown specific plan zoning regulations. The proposed project is covered under the prior CEQA environmental review for the downtown specific plan and for the City of Indio General Plan 2040. With the application of relevant conditions of approval, the project can be approved. Conditions of approval are binding and must be adhered to. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2047 of the Planning Commission of the City of Indio, conditionally approving design review 2206502 for the proposed construction of a 3-story, 20-unit mixed-use apartment building with a ground floor ready retail commercial space on certain real properties identified as accessor parcel numbers 611-151-017 and 611-151-018, located along Oasis Street, and making a determination that no further environmental review is required, as the environmental impacts of the project were sufficiently analyzed under the Downtown Specific Plan Program Environmental Impact Report, pursuant to CEQA Guidelines, Section 15168. If you guys have any questions for me, the applicant is also here for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for staff? No? Okay. So we'll open up the public hearing and we'll let the applicant do a presentation.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hello, commissioners. My name is Billy Ashai, Bilal Ashai, with Ashai Design. Yeah, this is the 20-unit apartment housing development that we're proposing on the 2 lots that are basically on the corner of Oasis Street and Indio Boulevard. This is the site plan that basically shows you the general footprint of the building. It also shows you that there are amenities oriented towards Oasis Street, and there is an entry courtyard, so as to provide a concept of entry or arrival for the residents on the in the apartment building. Yeah, there are the planting that we have proposed within the project. We're mainly sticking to California native planting, drought-tolerant landscape design. We have a spa swimming pool proposed within our site plan. We have courtyard water features and seating areas with a sunken fire pit. So we're promoting more of the social activity towards the front in Oasis Street, similar to our other project on Oasis Street in Requa. We have a base podium landscape plan, has basically the same things as the site plan. Yeah, it's California native planting, drought tolerant. It's low to moderate water needs. The moderate water needs mainly are within like the palm trees and other such things, but generally it's low water needs. The ground floor accommodates for the ADA units, and we have a corner retail or restaurant space that we're planning for. It's also a commercial space. And it also provides the electrical meter and plenty of parking for the residents. And then we have the podium floor plans where all units have a deck and balcony. So there is public outdoor there's outdoor space available to the residents, privately and publicly. There's also, the atrium also connects to the entry courtyard below. So basically you go from the courtyard up to your units. All of the corridors, this is the 3rd floor plan. All of the corridors are open to air. And again, all units have their own deck and balcony. It's pretty important to have the corridors open to air, in my opinion. These are general unit plans. I noticed within the brief it said that there was a unit that said it was 297 square feet. That's inaccurate. I don't know where that number was coming from, but yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head the minimum square footage of the unit size, but it's definitely significantly larger than 297 square feet. The colored building elevation. So I made a color and material board available for you all. We're planning on having a composite or wood siding that's oriented vertically for the for when it's for the red painted facade, and oriented horizontally for the white painted facade, white painted siding. And then we also have some smooth stucco, and basically wherever there's aluminum, whether it's, well, there's going to be aluminum reglets so as to prevent cracking for the stucco and all that stuff. So it's pretty nice elevations in our opinion. And then these are just aerial views. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna just add to Oasis Street, and it's in compliance with the general plan 2040. It's really aligned with what Indio seems to want with its zoning and its downtown neighborhood specific plan. So yeah, that's about it. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who have a comment on this item? Okay, seeing that there are none, are there any questions from the commission for the applicant?
No, there are no public comments online.
Gotcha. I didn't receive one, so I just assumed. Thank you, Ms. Redmond. Okay, any questions for the applicant?
I just have one.
Yes, please.
I noticed on one of the renderings that you have solar panels.
Yes.
On the roof. So is that definitely going to happen or is that just a hope?
So in our roof plans, we generally accommodate for solar panels. We accommodate area for that, and I believe relative to, I could be wrong, but from 2022 IBC, there are certain energy requirements and efficacy requirements that we have to meet. So solar panels are, I mean, I would imagine that we are definitely accommodating for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you for the board. Because if
Yeah.
you look at the color on the screen looks more orange, and the color on the board is more of a brick red.
Yes.
And that's why I always like the board.
Yeah. I don't know
So,
where.
see, there was one that looked a little, on our screen anyway.
Yeah,
Again,
the
every screen
daylight-
it looks different.
The
so.
daylight aerial view I can understand looks a bit orange, but yeah, it's meant to be a bit of a red.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
Any other questions? Nothing? Okay. So then we'll close the public hearing, and we can go into deliberation. Thank you. Would anybody like to make any comments?
I don't have any comments, but if you're entertaining motions, I'll make a
Yep.
motion to approve resolution number 2047, conditionally approving design review for a proposed construction of 3-story, 20-unit mixed-use apartment building with ground floor retail-ready commercial space on certain real properties identified as parcel numbers 611-151-017 and 611-151-018.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, can we get a roll call?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Seja.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We want to be invited to the groundbreaking ceremony.
Definitely.
Yeah, be part of your condition.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action item 7.1, consideration for a recommendation to City Council. Do we have a staff report?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nico Huitron, Planning Technician with the Community Development Department. On January 25th, 2023, the Planning Commission issued a continuance for this action item. The Planning Commission also requested, with permission of the Rancon Group, to present their their self-storage market study. Please understand that this study reflects information from 2021 and provides market information through the City of Indio along Indio Boulevard, leading to High 111 and through into the City of Coachella. I did want to point out that within the past couple of weeks since the the January 25th Planning Commission meeting, we still currently have 15 active facilities in the city. There are now 7 pending facilities, which includes 2 more that we received planning applications for. And we also received 1 building application. We still remain at 9 inquiries regarding facilities within the past 12 months. 2 facilities are still within the city of Coachella, and 3 facilities within the city of La Quinta, 3 facilities within the city of Palm Desert, and 1 facility in unincorporated Bermuda Dunes. I present the options. I represent the options on the for you to view. If you have any questions. Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, are there any questions for staff regarding the report?
Was there, I don't remember, I'm just asking, was there some more information we were also trying to get in pertaining to, like,
So we provided the market study within the staff report that was available for you to view. That information is limited. We weren't able to get a complete density information regarding all of these storage facilities within the city due to some places not providing that information. Therefore, we didn't present all of it.
And that market analysis is page 6 of 29 of the staff report.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess we can open up the public hearing. Are there, no public hearing? Okay. So it's just a discussion and then make a decision?
Chair, even though it's not a public hearing under the Brown Act, we still have to take public comment prior to or during consideration of the item.
Okay,
So you can just open it up, double check to make sure there's no public comment.
great. Okay, are there any public comments?
There are none.
Thank you very much, Ms. Badman. Okay, let's deliberate. Who would like to go first?
I just have a real quick question for you, Mr. Guitron. How many jobs do these provide again? If you could just refresh my memory.
Typically, a storage facility can provide up to three jobs.
Are these 3 full-time, 3 part-time?
It could be full-time, part-time. You could have one person there working, as it permits for them to be working there until close, lock up, come back in the next morning. They also have automated security systems that people can get in for after-hour access, so there doesn't need to be someone 24/7. They could also add for security jobs overnight, but that would be for like a security company if they wanted to hire someone like that. But typically, could be up to 3.
Up to 3. So I'm so sorry, I didn't print out the report, and I was trying to look through my phone to see the report on the thing.
Oh.
But anyways, my question is, how many of those are, because I know that there's some that actually live on the
site.
On site. How many of those do we have?
As far as employees?
That live there, yeah, that
On
would
the
live there
site.
as an employee on site?
We don't have that information. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I had a couple
I'm
of.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we did actually have a public comment in person.
Yes,
Just lives
thank you,
there with
Mr. Danlong. I apologize. If you'd like to make your public comment, please. Yeah.
Yes, Dan Long with the Rancon Group. We have a project that's active in the city of Indio. We are actually preparing to pull our building permits. Our plans are approved, grading plans are approved, working on some things with IID, and waiting to take my PM10 class so I can sign on the permit so we can pull our permits. But I'm here today really to answer any questions you may have of the self-storage projects. I can speak to some of the staffing issues that you just mentioned. Really don't have a whole position on the item tonight. If there's a moratorium on it, we kind of benefit. We're ready to pull permits. That'll actually help us. On the flip side, we love India. We love this area. We want to grow. We're actually looking at more sites. So we are some of those inquiries. So I'm not really here to take a position per se. I'm really here to explain self-storage to you, answer any questions. Some of the things I will say is I'll be the first to recognize self-storage is not the sexiest use. My previous life, I was a city planner, and when I had a self-storage come across my desk, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Didn't really like them. I'll be the first to admit it. As I've come to the other side, the dark side, some may say, I've really learned that self-storage, it provides a service. While we may not like it, it's somewhat similar to some of the other things you've heard about tonight. You need it. You don't necessarily like it or want it, but you need it. And why is that? One of the things I've learned about self-storage is in the self-storage industry is really what we call transition specialist, what we call the Ds, the death, dissolution, divorce, downsizing. All those things happen to every single one of us at some point in our lives, whether it's our families, our parents, us personally. We go through them. We need a place to put our storage while we are transitioning. So while I'm not here to say, hey, go self-storage, I am here to tell you that there is a need for it in your community. Other than that, I'm really here to answer any questions that you may have. You mentioned about staffing. The answer to that is it depends. During the first, what we call the lease up, the first, call it 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, you're really ramped up on your staffing because you want to fill up your units as fast as possible. We may have anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe even 6 staffers on at the desk at that given time. Once we're actually leased up, it will go down to 3 to 5. We have a maintenance person, we have some salespeople, we have some service people. It really depends on the operation. So generally about 3 to 5 once you're completely leased up. Some facilities are going to complete remote operations. You walk up, it's like an ATM, you charge your card, you get a key, and you lease your unit that way. We do not operate that way. We don't like that. We're more the personal touch. Not everyone is like that, but there are some facilities out there. We believe what sets us apart is our customer service, making that connection with the folks, making sure they feel secure. One of the things we found out about self-storage is 90%, that's not correct, 70 to 80% of customers that come in here are women. So one of the things we work on is we stress safety, facilities, nice. We don't put asphalt, we actually put concrete. It just looks better, it looks safer, it's more lighter. We put music on, so we make it a real safe environment. And that's just us, that's how we operate. Not everyone operates like that, but that's how we certainly operate. Other than that, I just want to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your comment. All right. Thank you. So let's go into deliberation or any. Oh, yeah, please.
I just had a quick question for staff, if you may, and thank you so much for generating the report. I'm still wondering is, obviously as a resident of Indio and having a lot of folks that I know here in the city of Indio, the question is how many residents of Indio are using these self-storage facilities versus us housing outside residents, RVs, boats, and vehicles and whatnot. Because, in my thought, thinking, well, if we're providing a service for our residents, then yeah, let's do that. But if we've overextended it as a result of offering opportunities to residents from outside our community that may not necessarily reside here, I'm just thinking that may be a disservice to our community who may need the need, or maybe who not, they don't. I don't know. So that's kind of the question I have, and I realize the market study was a little limited, and I appreciate that, but I know that maybe there's no way to predict that or get that information, I'm not sure. But that's just my general concern as it relates to these types of facilities and the amount of revenue they generate, which is next to nothing for the city.
While we don't have that information of how many City of Indio residents are using these facilities, we have, in our research, discovered that the City of Indio has substantially more than neighboring cities. So just taking that into consideration, one can assume that residents from other cities are coming to Indio to utilize those facilities. So it may be 50-50, maybe more than half, but it's kind of hard to tell just because some of the facilities weren't willing to provide us with too much information, but just considering that we have substantially more storage facilities than our neighboring cities, you can assume that we're probably taking in some of the other cities' customers.
Thank you. Yes.
So we keep talking about the limited amount of land that we have left for light industrial, and this fits under light industrial. So right now, it sounds like we have 7 pending,
Yes.
right? So are those 7 pending already incorporated in the numbers we keep throwing around about the land, the amount of land that we have left? Or because they're not built yet, has that not been removed from the available space?
Since those have not yet been constructed, they haven't been removed from our available space.
Okay, then my follow-up question is, if those 7 come to be, do we know the percentage of land that we have that will then go away for this use, based on what we have left?
The various storage facilities are different sizes, so it depends on the project. There's not kind of like a cookie cutter design layout, despite,
Do
you
a
know,
ballpark?
there may be.
10%, 15%?
I would probably say maybe about 10%. 10 to 15, I think, would be a good estimate of what they would take from our existing land uses.
What would be so let's talk timeline, because I think to me that's the bigger concern about the type of action that should be proposed to city council. If the 7, saying that there's already a few pending facilities that are, I'm assuming, further down the process, if these inquired locations, what would be a timeline to say by the time that they get to a design review for the planning commission? You know, what does that look like? Because I think to me that's really the concern is, does it need to be a more present or a more immediate action, or is this something that, you know, we can take our time addressing if there are some modifications we want to do to the zoning?
So as far as the 7, since those have already had their applications in, the decision that would be made tonight for the recommendation and whatever council decides, it would not affect those. So kind of regardless of the timeline on those, I mean, it could all, depending on when they applied, they could be up to, I would say about 7 to 9 months from the point of their application that they submitted their application to when it would go through the commission.
Gotcha. And so then this, I'm looking at page 5. So this of the staff report, it's not showing any sort of upcoming interested parties in other properties throughout. So this is just what we know is coming down the permitting process right now, that regardless of what happens now, are going to be coming up to us. But is there a ballpark number, maybe even of folks that are interested? Again, it's because of the timing.
Sorry, so that would fall under the pending storage facilities. So the 9 pending that have not submitted anything, though, that would be something that they would be the ones that would be affected by a decision from yourselves and the council.
9 total.
9, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when you say 9 pending, have they come?
I'm sorry, 9, not 9 pending, 9 inquiries.
Inquiries, I'm sorry, inquiries.
I apologize.
So have they come before us? Is that considered inquiry?
No, so an inquiry, we considered an inquiry as if they called in, asked about a zone, asked about a parcel, and just made a request to say, would something like this, being a storage facility, be allowed within this zone? Then I took that as this is an inquiry for a possible storage facility.
Just to confirm, so there's 9 inquiry and 7 pending.
Yes.
Okay.
So total of 16 that are kind of floating around.
That could possibly
7,
happen if no decision.
And just to confirm, if we were to make a recommendation to council, nothing happens until council either accepts it or disagrees with us. Any time between the time we make a comment and until they make a decision, any applications that come in are in the system.
Any applications that are deemed complete prior to city council decision,
Right.
we would have to process and allow.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So I guess my question in the staff, I see that there are recommendations, some approaches we can take. Can you help me paint a picture with the less drastic measure? What are we looking at timeline to implement and make some modifications to the zoning code? And then in the more extreme option, what does that give us as a city as far as timeline for making decisions?
trying to be the audience member tonight. Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. So the chair's question is a good one. If you are processing amendments to city zoning requirements, it's a legislative process, which, as the commission is aware, means that it's a two-step process. First, we would have to prepare the necessary materials, do all the required public notification, and then invite the public to participate in a public hearing before this body. This body would then make a recommendation to City Council. City Council will then conduct its own public hearing and make a decision. That probably reasonably would be somewhere in the range of 5 to 7 months to get through that with the required preparation of documents, the public noticing, the conduct of the hearings, the fact that you are making a recommendation only to council. So reasonably 5 to 7 months is what I would say where we are today based on our current workload. And that would apply, I think, in the options that would be identified as options 3 and 4 on the list, where there are recommendations for some sort of changes, zoning regulations, whatever they may be. And then obviously option number 5. So for the benefit of the public, I can explain briefly a moratorium process. So a moratorium is an action by City Council in response to a public health safety situation. So for example, if the City Council deemed that the number of applications that are coming into the city for these type of facilities was an emergency situation and a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, then the council could take action via an emergency ordinance to enact a moratorium. However, there's a limitation on that. It's only good for an initial 45-day period. And if the council does not take any action to extend it, the moratorium automatically expires. There is, by state law, a maximum period that the moratorium can be in effect, and that's 10 months. And that is intended to ensure that local governments don't use moratoriums as a way to inhibit or somehow not allow reasonable development to occur within their cities. So if the moratorium was ultimately enacted by the City Council, then we would have a work plan that would include the Planning Commission, whereby we would come back and ultimately work through the public process, again, public hearings, all those elements I just described, for you to make a recommendation to City Council where they would again conduct their own public hearing process and make some sort of decision, whatever that decision may be. That probably, it can take, I would say reasonably, it can take up to 10 months. We just don't know how long that'll take because we don't know how long it's going to take to put together the necessary information. We don't know how much engagement the council and or the Planning Commission might want, both with residents and or businesses. We don't know, we don't know how a lot of the elements of that at this moment. So to be safe and conservative, I would say it could take up to 10 months on that last bullet point.
Great, thank you. So I think we'll need to come to a consensus on what we want to do, and I can start by making, because I feel like I'll probably be the more extreme, usually voice in the room. So I want to say, I've been looking at the staff report. I had a meeting with Dr. Kevin Snyder. Why not? Dr. Snyder. Yeah, I know. And I've been really looking into it because I thought, well, I don't want us to scare anyone off or who it's going to affect or the type of development. I feel that this is very specific to a very a particular type of development that I don't think would necessarily affect other interested parties in our city. And being that we need to make some decisions on, since we're not necessarily sticking to other land, other property, we're entertaining the idea of going against our general plan and going against our zoning code for this particular type of zoning. I would say that my recommendation for us should be to recommend the more extreme of these recommendations, which would be the moratorium. So that's just me. I'm interested to hear from you all.
Before we get to that point, thank you, Chairman. I just needed 2 metrics. Staff, if you can help me with this, or Mr. Huitron. So based on the current zoning from us here for the lighting district, if I'm not mistaken, is there an internal control mechanism that would suggest to us of those inquiries, how many other inquiries were made of that same property in order to determine if that's, worthwhile for us to sort of entertain, or by law, do we have to entertain that request for said property? In other words, if I'm a property developer and I came in and I wanted to bid or submit, rather, an application for that same property that somebody had submitted an application or inquiry for a self-storage facility, what are the weights and measures as it results to, providing an opportunity for the latter, if it may provide us with a benefit to the city, if that makes sense?
I think typically when we do have an application for a parcel, if someone is interested in that same parcel, we would inform them that an application has been submitted for the subject parcel, and they will be moving forward with a project for that. But I'm not too sure. I don't know if Kevin.
And if I can ask that another way, and thank you for that, Mr. Gutron. So basically, what I'm asking too, just in another way, is the number of inquiries that we've received for self-storage are the only inquiries that we've received for those particular properties, or are there others?
Okay, yeah, so sorry, so now I understand your question now. So yes, what was found while doing the study is that these subject parcels for the inquiries were what we found that were only asked for what in the study, for what was in the study. There wasn't any other parcels that we did that were inquired for that are not reflected on the study.
Commissioner Vardo, I'm going to supplement what Mr. Gutron said. So you asked kind of a question about regulatory control. So we do not track the number of applications on a particular parcel. That would be, honestly, from a staff resource management side, I couldn't justify that. And we don't have the type of technology that allows us to easily do that in an automated fashion. But without any regulatory controls, the city cannot control how many times a party applies on a piece of property for any type of use. They can apply, the application is one thing. Whether or not they're appropriate for the use that they're looking to do is appropriate for the zoning designation for that property is a separate matter. And then thirdly, you as a commission, as a body, once an application has been received, has been deemed complete, we as staff and you as a commission have a legal obligation to review and make a decision on that. You're not obligated to make any sort of decision. It could be an approval, a denial, or something else, but you are, as in the city as a whole, is required to make a decision on a valid application that comes before it once it meets the minimum legal test of being complete.
Thank you, Kevin. And then also, Kendra, you mentioned 10 to 15% was sort of a roundabout figure of what would be utilized as a result of these applicants moving forward. Now, of that percentage, what are we talking about? Is that 10 to 15% of what number?
I believe 60% of our light industrial land uses are still available, or industrial land uses are still available, and then that would, of the 40% that are left, that would be about 10 to 15% that would then be taken from that land use stock.
So let me supplement that just a little bit more. So the city, when we adopted the General Plan 2040, the Planning Commission and ultimately City Council identified 519 acres for workplace employment district designation. For a city of that size, it's an incredibly low acreage amount. Other communities would have anywhere sometimes 2,000 to 3,000 to even more than that. And of that, a significant percentage, say somewhere in the range of 40 to 50%, has been consumed by uses, whether they be mini storage or other uses. So we don't have a lot of land left for light industrial oriented uses that are focused on manufacturing, that are focused on production, that are focused on potentially job generating light industrial uses. That does put this question, you're going to keep getting it, I think, of how to use this limited land inventory to the best of the ability. And that's ultimately a planning commission, the city council decision. Staff will make recommendations, and whether or not you agree with them is certainly your right. But please keep in mind that, and this is not new, that 519 acres was discussed, and several of you were sitting at this dais when we discussed that limited land inventory, and the council's discussed it as well, and it does put the city in a potentially awkward position of not being market responsive when those type of businesses want to come to the city, because we just don't have enough land for that. So just something to keep in mind.
I would also like to add that we have now had 2 project consultations presented. Both of those have stated, where they're requesting general plan amendments, zoning amendments, and both of those projects have stated, well, if we don't do our project here, it's just going to be a mini storage. So it kind of puts the city in this weird position, at least, sorry if I'm being a little biased on it, but it's just kind of hard to see, oh, well, why not do a general plan amendment? Because you're just going to end up with a mini storage anyways. So that's something that I would just like to have kept in mind as
Something
well.
else to put in perspective as well, the most recent application that we received did have, it was 87,000 square feet outdoor storage for RVs, for an RV storage, excuse me, which would only house about, I think it was about 20 RVs on that lot.
How big was that lot, or how big?
87,000 square feet.
Wow.
It would take up, I believe it was 5 parcels.
Okay.
A quick question, it's a little technical, maybe for Mr. Snyder, Dr. Snyder, if you can help me answer this question. Based on so we talk about workforce employment designation zones, like, what does it say, like, what determines that? And is there a criteria about how many jobs you're allowed? Because I remember when I worked in workforce development, we pushed the enterprise zone and the empowerment zone, which was supposed to bring these manufacturing jobs, and that went away with RDA and everything else. But there was a criteria of, like, when you're getting these tax credits or they're in a certain zone, you had to, like, it was required to have like 25, 30 plus or more jobs. And so I guess my question is, do we have anything like that in place? Is there a minimum or maximum?
So it's a great question. But I'm going to go backwards to go forwards for a second. So when the Workplace Employment District designation was established by the General Plan 2040, it was intended to support the economic development goals and policies of the city that are memorialized in that general plan. And one of the major goals was to create a diversified employment base within the city that looked beyond just the tourism-based economy, and that also looked beyond the services-based economy, whether it be landscaping services or other personal services. So that workplace employment designation was a purposeful attempt to establish a more diversified workforce opportunity in the city of Indio. What you're talking about, Commissioner, is often referred to as a jobs to housing balance ratio. So oftentimes in communities, they want to create jobs that are comparable or within some ratio of their housing numbers. So for example, some communities said, we want a 1-to-1. And so that means if you have 30,000 housing units in your city, you want 30,000 jobs. So that is not something that the city in its general plan has done, where we've actually formally established a jobs to housing balance or jobs to housing balance goal for the city. Yes.
Or do we don't require, like, for instance, if this is light industrial, we're talking about manufacturing jobs, there's not a requirement, or say we require a minimum of, if you're gonna put in a, say for instance, some manufacturing, light manufacturing, we require this amount of, at least to have, for this to go in the zone. Because when I see workforce employment, I'm thinking back 20 years.
Yes.
And what some of those requirements were. So I'm just trying to connect that with the zone, and I just kind of feel a little.
No, you're asking a great question. The city, at least in the General Plan 2040, to date has not established mechanisms whereby we could establish thresholds for employment within light industrial or heavy industrial zoned areas of our city where we would set that there has to be so many jobs per acre produced, for example. That's not something the city has done at a policy level that has been implemented through zoning regulations. So we do not have that. We have goals and policies that seek to diversify the job space of the community, but we have not gone down the path. And some communities have done that where they've actually established those goals and they've tied them back to incentive programs. For example, that there's certain incentives that are granted if you produce so many jobs per acre on a piece of property, for example. We haven't done that.
Okay, that's it.
You might want to get on that, especially if we're considering giving this type of land away to other projects. Any other comments?
Just a comment, the gentleman that spoke earlier, I thought it was an interesting statement that he gave in regards to the 3Ds, 4Ds, whatever, death, divorce, downsizing, all these things that people of every segment and walk of life go through. I'm just wondering to myself what makes our city so attractive and desirous for these people to put storage facilities. You know, people in Rancho Mirage, you know, go through those things. People in, you know, Indian Wells and La Quinta go through those things. I'm wondering if when they're looking at their market studies, is it a median income, you know, type number that makes them, you know, want to, you know, choose a certain area or city over another, or if it's, you know, suspected, I don't know.
So, Commissioner, I'm sure Mr. Long's going to jump in, but I'll give you some thoughts, and then I think if the chair wants to invite Mr. Long to give comments, that's certainly within his purview. There are a variety of determinant factors, and some instances it may be land values of the community. If land values of the community are at a certain level where land can be purchased, at an appropriate price level, that may be an attractive factor for making that decision. It may be the market saturation. If a community has attractive land prices and not a lot of competing other businesses, that may be a factor. And then the other thing may be the regulatory environment. So the regulatory environment, if there's a number of hurdles, for example, as I mentioned to you previously, this commission and the council ultimately agreed with you, put in place a requirement that there be fronting commercial or either office or retail commercial for these type of projects. Some may feel that that is an inhibitor and does not fit their pro forma and their business needs, and that may be a deterrent for them deciding to come to Indio. So from my perspective, just having had the chance to work around these for 30 plus years, that's going to often be drivers, but I'm sure if the chair wishes to allow Mr. Long to speak as a member of the industry, he may give you additional perspectives or even correct me.
Yeah, if you'd like to respond to Mr. Isiano's question, please, Mr. Long, we'll invite you to come up.
Thank you. As Mr. Snyder indicated, a lot of it is demand, commercial market area. We look at our CMA, 3 to 5 miles out of the radius, and we look at that area and figure out, is that an underserved area? We look at that very heavily. We looked at rooftops. We want to have rooftops around. The self-storage industry has changed quite a bit over the years with, businesses aren't storing files anymore. Why? Because it's on the cloud. So you're not seeing the 5x5s anymore. You're seeing more larger units. Why? It's because people have toys, boats, RVs, jet skis, motorcycles, you name it. And we have a project in Idaho. We're breaking ground right now. There's literally no unit smaller than 10 by 10. Why is that? Because they're all in the outdoors. They have their dune buggies and boats and all that stuff. Down here, it's more families, rooftops. We have some smaller units. Certain areas we looked at pent-up demand. That's a term you may hear quite often. We'll look at, for example, in the city of Menifee. We're building one there now, actually getting ready to break ground. There has not been a self-storage built in that commercial market area in 15 years. Huge pent-up demand, right? So yes, we target those areas. In this specific area, we have a market study that showed there was a pent-up demand. So we target those areas. We looked at a project in Temecula. We did a commercial market study. We found out there was 800,000 square feet of self-storage coming online. We walked. No way. Don't want to compete with that. So really a lot of it is, what is the pent-up demand? When has the last self-storage facility been built? How many rooftops are in that area? And then we start zeroing in on what makes sense, where we want to be. When we find an area where there's pent-up demand, we will look all over that area for a site that makes sense. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the industrial park or on this side of town or that side of town. We're looking in that commercial market area where the pent-up demand is, and that's why we will target our sites. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we could deliberate or make.
So, quick question for staff. If the only thing that will make a faster impact to give us time to work on an amendment or a recommendation to an amendment would be the moratorium, right? That could happen relatively quickly. It gives us time, and gives staff time to put together the recommendation, you know, of whatever it is we're trying to, whether we limit the number within the city or we limit the number or whatever. There's so many different ways we could go with this. I think the moratorium would give us time to come up with that plan without increasing these numbers, where we have 7 pending, 9 inquiries, and it just seems to be growing exponentially, and taking that land that we keep talking about that we don't have very much of. Or am I missing something? Is that something that we could do something quickly?
Yes, so what you stated is correct.
I mean, we would, if we decided to make some sort of an amendment, you know, there's so many different options, different ways we could go, whether it's a number or, you know, if we're considering, you know, how close they are to certain areas. I mean, that definitely would take some time and definitely not something we could do, you know, quickly. Probably would be several discussions, I would imagine.
And then I imagine that staff could use the time to kind of put things on hold for us so that they can figure out what, you know, respond to all those questions that we have, you know, regarding the best use and any sort of types of amendments that we want to do.
Would staff kind of perhaps help, you know, listen to us and our feedback and perhaps guide us through a few different options if we're kind of considering whether we're going to consider it on numbers or area, you know, maybe guide us down a few different roads that we might be able to take?
Yes, we can take that back as a discussion item.
Would this be a good use of maybe an ad hoc committee of 2 planning commissioners meeting with staff or not?
You could create an ad hoc committee to work with city staff. However, if you do appoint 2 people to an ad hoc committee, it could very easily turn into a serial meeting if those 2 individuals then talk to a third planning commissioner. So if the commission does decide to go down that route, it needs to be very careful to make sure that if a majority of the planning commission is discussing the issue with the storage facilities, that it's being discussed as part of a properly noticed and open meeting for the public.
Thank you for that, Kendra. And I too feel that perhaps maybe with result to providing more time that's necessary to make a more well-informed decision about what we want to do in the order of amendments to the Unified Development Code, that it would require us the time. And if memory serves me correctly, I thought you had said, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have up to 10 months maximum. Is that correct? For the moratorium with action?
I believe it's 45 days initially, and then you can extend it for 10 months and 15 days. Generally speaking, with moratoriums, you don't go beyond that year. The year is usually sufficient time for a city to study the issue and craft a more permanent solution.
And the only thing I'll add is that 45 days plus the 10, and thank you, I forgot the 15 days, 10 months, 15 days, that's cumulative. So, and you'll find that most staff, including your legal counsel, will discourage you from going beyond that, because then it becomes regulating through moratorium rather than regulating through zoning, which can put a city in a legally liable position. So just keep that in mind. And I do need to say, and I know you know this, but for the record, the commission's only action tonight, if you take one, is a recommendation to council. The decision whether to enact a moratorium is a council decision, and they do not necessarily have to accept the recommendation of the planning commission, although they always do seem to be very interested in your recommendation. So.
Okay. Thank you for that.
So I'm willing to entertain a motion. Or
Can we put them back up?
do we? How do we go about this? Do we say which one we like and then make a motion, or?
Earlier you had stated your preference on which option you wanted. I know you're the chair, so you're trying to facilitate discussion and open it up for the commission to make similar statements. So if we need someone to make a motion for one of these directions, and then we need a second to that motion, and then you can vote.
Great, thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Can we go ahead and second his initial first? That said, I'd like to move that we recommend to the City Council to adopt a moratorium consistent with the statutory provisions, to allow the Council, Commission, and staff further time to analyze the regulation of all our storage facilities within the municipal limits of the City of Indio, while not allowing any new applications for these facilities during the effective period of the moratorium.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Can we please get roll call?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item 8, Commissioner comments. Are there any comments from the commission? No? Okay. Staff items? Please.
So I was going to share this last time, but you guys were tired. So I figured I wouldn't take any more of your time. But I do want to share this. So we keep statistics, and this is not necessarily planning, but it is. We keep statistics throughout the year on our building activity, and everything that goes through our building activity, in large part, not everything, but many things that go through our building and safety division come through this body. So I wanted to share with you our 2022 statistics. So in 2022, we issued 4,644 total permits. That had a valuation of $238 million. We also, of that number, 4,644, 531 of those were new single-family home permits. That's the highest number we've seen since 2006, I believe. We issued, which is kind of a big deal, actually, because we issued actually 25 multifamily permits, which in my 4 years here, this is the first year we've reported more than 0. The valuation of those were about $33 million. We issued a new commercial permits, a total of 15. Valuation of those were $34 million. And we completed, and I had to double check this number, but it was confirmed. We completed 43,686 building inspections in 2022. The building inspectors were very busy. And we also completed 1,551 plan checks. And why I tell you this is because 2022 will go down as probably one of the busiest years in the Community Development Department, and certainly represents a lot of activity in the city, many of which you see as you drive around with projects happening and more projects coming down the pike. So, well, this is building and safety data. It does relate back to the work that you do as a commission. You had your hands and fingers in a lot of these efforts, and they are leading to outcomes that you see where this activity is happening. This means that the city is active and vibrant and growing. And yes, we have our challenges. We have the electrical capacity issue that you've talked about earlier this evening, but we are continuing to be perceived very positively by the market, and that reflects in the numbers that I'm reading to you, which does lead to the overall growth and development of the city. And it does hopefully lead to more opportunities to come down the pike, because you have a lot of projects that you approved in the last 6 months in this city that have not even reached our building permit stage yet. And we're already gearing up for a number of large projects coming before this body in 2023. So the point in all of this is to say that The Indio is very busy. I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for this, saying this by my peers in other cities, but Kendra and I go to meetings where we sit with other cities and hear about their activities, and I can say that we are by far the busiest. With no disrespect towards the other communities, we just have a higher volume of activity, which I think also reflects the high volume of interest by the market, whether it be residential or non-residential, in the city of Indio, which I think is good for the city. And so I wanted to share these stats with you because I think it's something you should hear and something you should know that you have helped contribute to.
Thank you, Kevin, and it's a great time to be an Indio resident, and thank you to staff for all of the hard work that you've done, particularly last year. And I want to say thank you for whoever was involved with that interface, that you can go onto our city website and look at all the development that is happening. It is so fantastic. This is you. Congratulations. Thank you for doing that. I refer people to that all the time. I kid you not. I get messages on social media that are like, what's going on in this area, you know? And I'm like, oh, let me remind myself, and I'll use the interface. So thank you very much. I think it's a wonderful tool for the community and for myself.
I see a lot of people like on Nextdoor commenting on using it, and they're sharing it with other people. People will ask like, what's going on over here, or what happened to this? And I've seen just members of the public state that, you know, there's a website that you can look and see what's coming, and people will get on it and look themselves and talk about, we got this, and this coming soon. So that's cool. It's kind of generating some excitement in the community.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I make one additional comment? I'm sorry, and Kendra's going to kill me because I told her I was just going to sit in the audience tonight. But you will also start seeing popping up in the community our new notice board signs. The first ones are going out. Nico and I were working on ours today, and they're 4x4 bright yellow. And what's great about them is they have a 1 foot by 1 foot QR code on them that takes it directly to the development dashboard that you've been talking about. So folks that are interested can take their smartphone, take a picture of that QR code, and it'll take them directly to that development dashboard where they can get information about that. So this is part of the new zoning regulations effort to be more transparent and more informative about development in the city. So the first batch of those are going to go out in the next few days, and you'll see them, and then we'll have more going out. This is, again, part of our efforts to get the word out about projects in the city so that it's not only people that are immediately nearby it that are receiving information, but anyone that's passing by that might live in one part of the community but's traveling in another part and sees that. And if they want to know what's going on, they can.
It's very useful. Thank you. Okay. Well, we can go ahead and adjourn our meeting, and we'll see you all next meeting on February 22nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. right here. Thank you.